A lot. Within that time, excuse me. Within that time, I have developed. So that was October of 2016, and from that moment until August of 2017, I had this one way of kind of talking about what I do. Mm-hmm. And it was based, I'm not going to say anecdotally, it was based on one person, and then kind of what, and the person that I photographed is a branding professional. So she and her husband helped me get the whole thing off the ground with the website and the services and all that stuff. And at the beginning, I was just kind of speaking in a way to people that I kind of talked about stuff from my perspective. And then in August of 2017, I began working with an amazing consultant. And he's much more than that, but I hired him for that capacity. And he basically took a look at my social. He took a look at my blogs that I thought were kicking ass. He basically said to me that everything that you put sounds like every other photographer. It's surface level, and there is zero you. Where is you personally in these pieces? And that really smacked me in the face, because what ended up happening was I took stock in what he said and realized that I was not addressing the pain points. Now, granted, this model was built off of a direct client's pain points, which is an ideal way to do it. However, the way in which that I was presenting it on social through my blogs and the way that I was talking, and this was before I started doing podcasts as well, the way that I was conversing with people in person was very much based on what I thought they needed, not what are the needs of the people that I serve. So the biggest fundamental shift was that. And now I've been at it where I write 3 blogs a week. I went from 2 a month, maybe 4 a month if I'm lucky, so 1 a week, to 13 a month. And I write social every single day. And that forced me to do was really listen to the people and listen to their needs and understand what it was that they really needed. And to be completely honest with you, that never stops. Mm-hmm. It's a constant refinement. Everything that we do as business owners is a constant refinement, because you're learning different insights and different types of intricacies and nuances that each person brings to the table that I have to capture in them through their images, as well as preparing them with the content creation stuff that I also do with my clients. So, and that's another thing that developed over the course of time. I realized that as I was shooting people and giving them hundreds of photos, that they have absolutely no clue what the hell to do with these things. And it becomes absolutely overwhelming to people who are not accustomed to posting consistently. Right. So what I ended up doing was, well, hey, I created this system for myself where I'm 3 months ahead on my content. And I write all this crap, and it's like, well, it's not crap, but you know what I'm saying? Like, in general, this pile of, it's my IP, really is what it is. And I need to share this with people so that they can do the same thing with the images that I give them, because the last thing that I want to do is hand a client photos and never see them being posted. That drives me up a wall. In fact, it was one client who posted a, dare I say, stock photo that pissed me off. It was like, hey, what are you doing? I just gave you like 200 photos and you're posting a stock photo. It's like, well, I got overwhelmed and I hired a social media person and they're taking over. And I'm like, that's great. Give them the damn photos that you just took. But that moment was the nail in the coffin for the idea that I need to do something with idea generation, content, creating a framework so that I could at least hand this to a client so that we can work on it in the beginning and I can hold their hand through the initial stuff just to get them used to it so they can start pumping ideas out. Mm-hmm. And so that's also been included into the program that I offer.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So could you then tell me a little bit more then about your program? In looking at your website, there's a lot of fantastic photographs that seem to be, much more personal than just the standard kind of run-of-the-mill, point and shoot type of thing. So when somebody books with you, what type of sessions do you have, and what can they expect from working with you?
Okay. Well, so what I do with my clients, I was just actually talking to someone earlier this morning about this. I told him that when it comes to my sessions, the prep work that we put in before we even get the camera and the lights out is actually longer than the photo session itself. I just put in a ton of effort with my clients to figure out, kind of who they are, who they serve, why they do what they do. And the way that I do that is by conducting a strategy call with them where I ask them 1,000,001 questions. I mean, I have a list. I think it's around 30. I don't even know. And then I ask follow-up questions because the producer in me never dies. But during that call, I'm able to extract all of these interesting little nuggets about those 3 questions, in addition to figuring out what work looks like to them. How do they get inspired? How do they write down their brilliant ideas? How do they work with clients? What does that look like? Is it virtual? Is it in person? There's a bunch of different ways. And what I end up doing is shooting a lot of images, these candid lifestyle portraits where it's breaking down the fourth wall between the audience and the person, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is create that connection, that rapport, to be relatable with the audience you serve. Because one of the things that I stress to my clients is that it's, even though you are a superhero in someone else's eyes that, you help, you also need to be relatable. Because if you're just a superhero, it puts you on this pedestal, and it's kind of intimidating for a lot of people. And in many cases, they won't reach out because they'll think that you're too far along to even want to, give any attention to that person. So what I like to do with my clients is really figure out those subtle nuances and what makes them unique with their in their particular space. And then once we go through the pre-session call, which also, by the way, extracts a lot of information about what they should wear, what are the locations that we should shoot in, what kind of props are you going to bring, what kind of books are you going to bring, because I don't just shoot the person. That gets really boring if you see portraits of people over and over and over again. Right. So I have them bring in objects that have emotional resonance for them that they can write about so that it becomes a relatable quality to the audience that's paying attention to their stuff, in addition to the books that inspire their thought leadership. I'll have them read the book, and I'll shoot chapter titles, I'll shoot passages, and my clients will then take those images and talk about what that stuff means to them. It's all relatable stuff. So we work on that. And then the second aspect of the preparation strategy that we do is we work on what I call the Idea Nugget Incubator Program, which is the content creation stuff that I had mentioned earlier. And what we do with that is I have it's basically a framework for people. It's giving them 14 different types of content buckets, types of themes that they can focus on to kind of get the ball rolling with them creating their own content. It's kind of like training wheels. I don't see the workbook that I have as an end-all be-all for people. It is just the starting point. So the way that I break it down is by subcategories. I have 3 subcategories of the 14 content buckets. The first one is illustrating your expertise. So that's meant to extract stories from their business and the client interactions and also their thought leadership and the stuff that they want to talk about, the high level stuff. And that builds the credibility. And then I have a bunch of content buckets about their life as a business owner, because I want them to talk about the ups and downs of being a business owner, failing and having no clue, and kind of how they got to where they are based on all of these bumps in their road on the way to where they are, because that again creates that relatableness to the people that they serve. And the third category is life as a human being, sharing stories about family and sharing stories, personal stories. And again, I never tell a client that they need to talk about certain things in their content because you need to be comfortable with what you're sharing. I certainly do not share everything about my life, but the stuff that I do share, I triple down on. And that's what I stress with my clients.
Sure. So when you're meeting with clients and you're photographing them, how do you build such good rapport with them? Because in looking at these photographs, the subjects seem very comfortable, very confident, and not everybody is comfortable being photographed or being in front of the camera. So how do you approach that?
So I'll just be honest and say the vast majority, if not 8 out of 10 of every person that's on my feed, on my website, they do not like being in front of the camera. In fact, some of them dread it. So what I do is, part of it is, quite frankly, I just talk a lot of shit and make them laugh. That's a huge piece. And the reason why it works is because the client has qualified me as someone that they like personally, and I have done exactly the same thing with them. It is not a one-way road. That's a misnomer for business owners where they think that the qualification comes from the client. That is not true. You need to qualify them as well, because at the end of the day, this is a very intimate process that I'm doing with people. It makes them feel very vulnerable and open and out there. And there needs to be trust, and there needs to be a certain level of rapport, a high level of rapport once you're shooting them. And to answer your question directly, it starts the moment that they pick up the phone to call and ask me questions about the process. That's when it starts. It does not start 5 minutes before the session. It does not start during the pre-session strategy calls. It happens the moment they contact me. And in some cases, it's direct message or text, or it's a referral, whatever the case may be. It starts the moment you start talking to them, because that's how you develop a real connection. There's a lot of listening. Listening not to just what they're saying, not just the meat and potatoes of the actual words. It's how they're responding to the way that I'm talking to them. That's a huge thing, because when I ask someone and get them to a place where they're looking vulnerable and they're pensive, and I'm getting that emotional range on the more darker kind of reflective side, not the snappy, happy, joyous and happy, laughing and going crazy. That stuff is layups for me. It's easy. There's nothing hard about that. The difficult part is capturing the entire emotional range, because when you look at other different types of speaker, author, coach profiles, you see a lot, in my estimation, you see a lot of beautiful work. There is a ton of amazing, talented photographers out there. The problem that I have with what I see out of a lot of these folks is that it's very vanity-driven images, and it's very popcorn, fun, fortune cookie wisdom type images that kind of really look beautiful, but there's no guts to it. There's no emotion to it. I've been through a lot of shit. I've lost a lot of money. I've done 10 different types of pivots on my business. I have struggled, and it took me 15 years to be an overnight success. There is none of that. And that to me is a problem, because you do not relate to people on a human, emotional, deep, personal level unless if you are providing the types of images that will visually punctuate those stories. And the fact is those people are still putting those stories out there. They're just pairing it with images that just there's an asynchronicity to it.
So you've mentioned a few times about the story behind a lot of the images and the more than just the cookie cutter kind of popcorn type of stuff. What are some bad examples you constantly see people doing, or bad advice you hear there all the time that's being passed around about how people should do content and branded content?
Are you trying to get me pissed off and upset? Is that what you're trying to do, Yuri?